No, don't tell me it's doing the left to right and right to left solution. What? What's up, everybody? How's it going? I am absolutely, utterly speechless right now. I just finished filming the video that you're about to watch, where I gave a Google coding interview, much like all the Google coding interviews that I've done on YouTube in the last few years, much like all the real Google coding interviews that I've given in real life when I was a software engineer at Google. I gave a Google coding interview, not to a real person, not to a real software engineer, but to an artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, which you may have heard of by now. It was launched a couple of weeks ago by OpenAI. OpenAI is a huge artificial intelligence research hub, and ChatGPT is a large language model that basically is like a chatbot artificial intelligence. And I'm speechless. Watch the full video. Please, don't skip any part. Just watch it all and get ready to get your mind blown. I asked ChatGPT questions that I've asked in real Google coding interviews at Google, questions that we have on Algo Expert, my company that helps software engineers prepare for technical interviews. By the way, if you're a software engineer, check out Algo Expert. Go to algoexpert.io and use the promo code CLEM for a discount on the platform. Speechless. Enjoy. Okay, so I have no idea what to expect from ChatGPT, but I've gone ahead and prepared 3 coding interview questions of increasing difficulty. We're going to start with a pretty easy one just to warm up. This is the kind of question that I would ask a real Google interviewee just to have them warm up, and then we're going to move on to a more difficult one, and then if we have time, an even more difficult one. Again, I have no idea how ChatGPT is going to perform. Let's see if it can actually handle even just the easy question. So, we've got 45 minutes on the clock, and let's dive into it. I have prepared prompts for ChatGPT before I even give it the question, just so that it knows what it's doing. So here I say, you're a software engineer who's interviewing for a software engineering position at Google. You're about to take a coding interview with me, your interviewer, and your goal is to perform as best as you can and to get a strong hire decision from me. I really want ChatGPT to know that it needs to do very well to impress me within the context of a Google coding interview. You're going to be writing code in JavaScript, and your question is the following. So this is the easy question. Write a function that takes in a non-empty string and that returns a Boolean representing whether the string is a palindrome. A palindrome is defined as a string that's written the same forward and backward. Note that single character strings are palindromes. So this is exactly how the question is written on Algo Expert, and let's see how it does. So it immediately answers, sure, here's one way to write a function that checks if a given string is a palindrome. Is palindrome, I think that's actually the exact name of the function that we have on Algo Expert. Takes in a string. It's got a lot of comments. We start by getting the length of the string. If the length of the string is 1, it's a single character string, so we immediately return true because we know it's a palindrome. And then we create 2 variables, left and right, that we'll use to keep track of the leftmost and the rightmost characters. Okay, so it's creating like 2 pointers. It's going to do a while loop. We loop through the string starting from the left and right ends and moving towards the center. If the characters are not equal to each other, we return false. Otherwise, we increment the 2 indices, and then we return true. So this is literally the optimal solution that I was looking for. There are a lot of different ways to check if a string is a palindrome, but this is the optimal one because it runs in constant space. You're not using any other space. There's a network error. But it was giving us examples on how to test it. Unfortunately, I couldn't see them, but if you pause the video, you'll actually see them, which is insane that it was doing that. So I'm really impressed by OpenAI right now and by ChatGPT. Let's see if I ask ChatGPT, can you tell me about, what is the space-time complexity analysis of this solution? Too many requests, please slow down. It looks like ChatGPT might be going through some technical difficulties. Okay, so we experienced a few technical difficulties there, but that wasn't related to ChatGPT itself. I think it's just the infrastructure behind the language model that was just bugging out. Too many people are using this at once. So I re-gave the prompt to ChatGPT just to restart it. And it's interesting because a couple of times it gave me like 2 different implementations or two different solutions of this palindrome, and this time they were worst. They weren't the optimal solutions. They were solutions that took, linear space. Finally, I got it to re-give the solution that we were looking at before. Interestingly, though, it's a different written solution. Like before, it had a left pointer and a right pointer that kind of converged to the middle. Here, it's a little bit different where it's got just one pointer that increments only to the halfway point of the string, and then it computes the other pointer kind of instantly, at the same time in this for loop. So very interesting. Now this still runs in a constant space, so it's still one of the optimal solutions. It's a little bit worse than the other one in the sense that the other one was really well documented. Like there were comments above each step, whereas here is just like a single comment. Now granted, it's a pretty simple algorithm. There isn't really much to say about it. And then ChatGPT gives us a bunch of test cases that we can use to really test out the solution, which is great. That's what you would want in a coding interview. This is even more test cases than we would ever expect in a coding interview. And that's that. So now I'm going to ask ChatGPT what I wanted to ask before, which is, what is the space-time complexity analysis of this solution? Let's see if it can tell us correctly that this runs in linear time and in constant space. And let's see if it can explain that, the constant space and all that, like properly. That's what I'm really looking for, because that's what we would be looking for in a real Google coding interview. The space complexity of the solution is O of 1, so it knows that it's constant space, since the size of the auxiliary space used by the function is constant and independent of the size of the input string. Very well said. The time complexity of the solution is O of n, where n is the length of the input string. This is because the function needs to iterate over the characters of the string up to the middle of the string, n divided by 2 iterations, and perform constant time operations on each iteration. That's so well explained. Since the number of iterations is directly proportional to the length of the input string, the time complexity is linear. We can also see that the solution is optimal in terms of time complexity. Oh, so it's saying that it's optimal because it's not possible to determine whether a string is a palindrome without inspecting all its characters, or at least up to the middle of the string. I love the little nuance, the little bit of nuance there. Any solution that doesn't inspect all the characters of the string would not be able to correctly identify all palindromes and therefore would not be a correct solution. I gotta give it to ChatGPT. This is amazing. This is a great explanation, very easy to understand, very articulate, and covers kind of all of the edge cases. So here so far, very impressed with ChatGPT. To be honest, this feels magical to me. I can't really put into words how crazy this is. But granted, it was a fairly easy question. Let's just confirm that this is actually correct. So let's put this into AlgoExpert. So it's called is palindrome in AlgoExpert as well. I'm just going to copy paste the inside. Let's rename the parameter to str. And let's run the code to just confirm. Yep, the code passes all the test case. So this was correct. Okay, so now let's move on to the second question. So this is a tougher question. This is actually the question that I failed when I went to, when I interviewed at Lyft, when I did a coding interview with Lyft, a phone interview, way back in the day before I worked at Google. This is going to be the longest palindromic substring question. So maybe I'll continue, or I'll just create a new thread. Let's just create a new thread. Or actually, we can probably continue here. So let's continue. I'm just going to not repeat you're a software engineer. I'm just going to say, okay, let's move on to a more difficult question. You're still writing in JavaScript. Your question is the following. Okay, write a function that, given a string, returns its longest palindromic substring. A palindrome is defined as a string that's written the same forward and backward, same thing. Note that single character strings are palindromes. So here, this solution can be solved fairly easily in n cubed time, n to the power of 3. You do 2 for loops and then you check that every substring is a palindrome, or whether or not it's a palindrome. Or it can be solved optimally in O of n squared time. So let's see. Here's a possible solution in JavaScript. Okay, special case when the string has length less than 1 or less than or equal to 1. So then it iterates through the string once. Check for palindromes of odd length. check for palindromes with even length. Okay, so it's using a helper method. I think this is the optimal solution. Let's see what it does for the helper method. Returns the longest palindrome at a given center point. Yep, you basically expand from a center point, and this is an O of n squared algorithm. This is insane. So it figured out immediately that you can do this in O of n squared. Like, this is something that I couldn't figure out in my first interview with Lyft, one of my very first coding interviews back in the day. Unbelievable. And it even knows that with this solution, you can't just like naively expand once at every character. You have to expand twice for, we got a network error. No, not a network error again. But yeah, you can't expand only once. You have to expand twice because you have to check odd length palindromes and even length palindromes. So we're experiencing technical difficulties again. I'm going to just restart a new thread with ChatGPT, try to get to the same point, and then ask about the complexity analysis. So it's redoing a similar solution, or basically the identical solution, but it's naming things a little bit differently. It's so interesting how, like, this is not just, simple copy pasta every time. No, it's coming up with the algorithm every time. Like, before, it wasn't called expand around center. And by the way, expand around center is a very semantically accurate name for what is happening here. Like I said, you are iterating through every character and then expanding from the center for every one of them. So absolutely incredible. Oh my God, another network error. My God. But it's just incredible that it can do this. It's incredible that it can do this. Let's see if I can get it to spit out the full thing and then ask the time complexity analysis without a network error. So right now, I just paused the screen on the end of another solution that it gave me that was yet again a little bit different, but ultimately the same idea of expanding at the center, as you iterate through the entire string. I paused because I got a network error right after again. But interestingly enough, here it started telling me about the time complexity, and you can see that it said n squared. I wish I could see the full explanation, but I'm just not going to bother right now. Clearly, there aren't enough infra resources to support this right now. But that's just mind-blowing. It knows that it's an n squared algorithm. And again, interestingly, every implementation of this question has been a little bit different. Like the way it writes the code. Like at the very beginning, it checked, just a string of length 1 or less than 1 in a single if check. Then in the second, attempt, it checked a string of length 0, so like an empty string, or just no string at all, like if you pass undefined to the function. Then it checked a string of length 1, and for both of those, these were one-line if checks. In this version of the solution, I think that they were like multi-line if checks. If open bracket, enter, new line, return. Just interesting how it writes different code every time. I don't know. I'm mind blown. This, all three solutions that it gave so far for this question were the optimal solution. It found them basically instantly. It documented its code. Clearly, it knew the time complexity, and it would have explained it to me very well, I think, seeing as how it explained the is palindrome time complexity and space complexity super well. I'm going to try running this one more time and quickly copy-pasting the code that it spits out to see if it actually passes all the test cases on AlgoExpert. So I'll be right back. Okay, so wait. I am absolutely mind blown. I've just rerun the prompt twice with ChatGPT, and it gave me two brand new, completely different solutions. The first one, I'll pause the screen halfway through it. I got another network error, unfortunately, but this was a super interesting solution that used dynamic programming. It's actually the basis of a very hard question that we have on AlgoExpert called palindromic min cuts, or minimum cuts to create palindromes in a string. It's a really difficult question that I was considering giving ChatGPT, and it basically found the solution to that question where you pre-compute everything in a two-dimensional dynamic programming array. It did that there, which is just mind-blowing. And I had never even thought of that solution for the longest palindromic question. But then it got a network error. And now I got it to give me yet another different solution. And here I didn't get a network error. And this one is the less optimal solution. So this one is the one where you do two iterations through the string, and then you check basically each substring whether it's a palindrome, and that's an O(n) operation. But it correctly tells me this solution has a time complexity of O(n) cubed, since the outer loop runs in O of n time, inner loop O of n squared because it calls its palindrome. But it knows this is not the most efficient solution, but it's simple and easy to understand. That is so good. Like in a real Google coding interview, I would love for the interviewer to tell me this to begin with. So let's try to actually just copy paste this and see if that really works in AlgoExpert. So I'll go to longest palindromic substring. We're going to copy all of this here, and I'm just going to rename string to S because it named it S for this code. And let's run. And yes, it passes every test case. Let's see if we can continue here without a network error. What if I say, okay, great. What about a more optimal solution? Let's see if it can give me a more optimal solution. Okay, we got a network error. One more try. Okay, I was able to get the great solution with the expand around middle thing. I copied the code. Let me put it in AlgoExpert. Let's see. We copy the code here, put it here, and it looks like here it named it string, str. Okay, so let me just delete the first line. Let's run the code, and it passes all the test cases. Oh my God. Look, and we can compare this to the solution on AlgoExpert. Like the solution, get longest palindrome from here, expand around middle, and you've got odd, even, and then you select the longest. And the expansion is like, great. It's exactly kind of what we do. I guess here it takes the substring, whereas we return the two indices, but ultimately it's the same thing. And yeah, this is just absolutely insane. Like, I'm just mind blown. And it puts comments where you would want to document your code. Like, how? Let's see if it got a network error, so we didn't see the time complexity analysis. But at this point, I believe that it would get this right. We saw earlier it said n squared for a split second. So let's move on to the final question. This is going to be a hard question. So here, I'm really curious to see how it does. This is a question that I used to ask at Google as an interviewer. This was one of my go-to questions. I categorize it as hard. We have it as hard on AlgoExpert. The reason I'm very curious is that this is a pretty difficult question to explain. Like, it's fairly simple input-wise, just one input array, but to explain it is pretty difficult. So let's see. So let me copy-paste it and read it to all of you. So we again tell ChatGPT that it's a software engineer interviewing at Google. Here's the question. Imagine that you're a teacher who just graded the final exam in a class. You have a list of student scores, that's your input array, on the final exam, in some particular order. So the order matters, but it's not necessarily sorted. And you want to reward your students. You decide to do so fairly by giving them arbitrary rewards following two rules. Okay, so you see, pretty complicated. Number one, all students must receive at least one reward. Number two, any given student must receive strictly more rewards than an adjacent student, meaning a student to the left or to the right, that has a lower score, and must receive strictly fewer rewards than an adjacent student with a higher score. Write a function that takes in a list of scores and returns the minimum number of rewards that you must give out to students to satisfy the two rules. So again, this is pretty tricky. You kind of have to give an example, otherwise it's hard for the candidate to really understand what's going on. By the way, you can assume that all students have different scores. The scores are all unique. So for example, you could be given this list of scores. So here, this list that I'm highlighting, right? 8, 4, 1, 3, 6, 7, 9, 5. These are scores. The minimum number of rewards that you would have to give out to the students to satisfy the two rules would be 25. And you would give out the following rewards. 4, 3, 2, 1. So you see here, you've got 8, 4, 2, 1 as scores. So that means 8 needs to get more rewards than 4, which needs to get more rewards than 2, which needs to get more rewards than 1. So 4, 3, 2, 1. And then 2, 3, 4, 5, because 3, 6, 7, 9, they're kind of incrementing, so they need progressively more rewards. And then 9 is greater than the final score 5, so you can give 1 to the final score 5, because you want to minimize the total rewards that you're giving. And so if you add up all these numbers, you get 25. So pretty complicated question. It's got a very elegant solution in linear time, where you do two loops, one from left to right, one from right to left. let's see what happens. Okay, I'm not gonna be like disappointed if ChatGPT, okay, it immediately found something. No. There's no way it figures this out. I was gonna say I'm not gonna be disappointed if it doesn't figure this out because this is like very complicated. No, don't tell me it's doing the left to right and right to left solution. What? What? It's doing the optimal solution that I told you about. No. No way. No way. Please no network error. Please no network error. Please no network error. Okay, let me quickly copy the code just so we can try it. But I know this is correct. I've done this question so many times at Google. Very few people got this elegant of a solution. Like very few. And usually it takes like, this is a single question that I give in a 45-minute interview. No, and it was walking me through the steps. It was walking me through an actual test case. Okay, let's paste the code. So min rewards. Reward students. Let's call it min rewards and delete the initial function. No way. No way. That was a difficult question. Both to like grok, to understand, and this is a very difficult algorithm to come up with. Like it's non-trivial. Like look, you iterate once from left to right and you get the best rewards from left to right, but then you go back from right to left and you take like here, yeah, math.max. It's exactly, look, it's our third solution that we have on AlgoExpert. It's our third solution. Runs in O of n time and O of n space. It's exactly that solution, except it's better documented because we don't document it in the code on AlgoExpert. And then there's another solution that runs in the same space-time complexity, but it's much more complicated. This is the solution that most candidates like converge towards after 30 minutes. This solution, I'm not going to walk you through it, but you can tell just from the left side of the screen here, it's much more complicated. Just much more involved. It's not as like elegant and clever. And then there's another solution that's less optimal in n squared time. But how? How? That's incredible. I genuinely thought that it was like gonna completely flip out here and not know how to solve this question. Like I thought that it was gonna misunderstand the prompt. I can't be the only one who's speechless right now. I can't be the only one who's speechless right now, right? How? First try. Not even like, no hesitation. And I know that when it takes a while to come up with the answer, I think it's because of like the infra and how there's so many people using ChatGPT right now. But here, it didn't even do that. Like it just spat it out instantly. Okay, this is terrifying. This is scary. This is scary. This is a little bit scary. At this point, I know that it would have given me the correct time complexity analysis. Like if it knows the correct time complexity analysis for the palindrome stuff with the DP, dynamic programming, all that, like it would have known it here. It was going to walk me through like a test case and like step by step. It's going to walk me through that. And it knows to do that. See, like I told it that it needs to do like a good Google coding interview, get a strong hire. It knows to document its code. It knows to handle edge cases. It knows to tell me how it's going to test its code. The only thing that I can reproach it is that it doesn't ask clarifying questions. That's the only thing that I've noticed. Maybe that's because I give it like most of the data that it needs because I'm copy pasting from AlgoExpert where we always provide as much information as we can in the prompt because this is not like a live interview. But also I think just ChatGPT, like it doesn't want to like ask you questions. It doesn't want to interact with you in that way. So I can't really blame it for that. But I opened up the rubric that we usually use for Google coding interviews at Google, and we have it on AlgoExpert for mock interviews. So if I had to grade ChatGPT on algorithms, I would have to give 4, the best score, right? Candidate came up with one or multiple optimal algorithms to solve the question. No, not the question, the 3 questions. And he came up with different solutions with little to no help from the interviewer. That's true. And it demonstrated a clear mastery of algorithms and data structures. Unequivocally, yes. Like, I have to give a 4 here. I can't not give a 4. Then coding. Candidate effortlessly transcribed an algorithm into working and readable code. Candidate abstracted repeated logic into helper methods, named variables descriptively, and used idiomatic language syntax. Again, here, I have to give it a 4. Like, yes, there was, I think, 1 solution, or maybe 2 in the longest palindrome thing, where, it named variables like L and R, but that was not even on purpose. Like, I think it already was passing in left and right, so it had to kind of come up with new names, or it just named an array like DP. Okay, that wasn't great. But most of the solution is really good, like, expand from center, reward students, odd length palindrome, longest palindrome, even length palindrome. And like, the JavaScript code was great. It was using ES6 syntax. I can't not give it a 4. I have to give it a 4. Communication, this is where it's a tiny bit tricky because candidate communicated clearly and unambiguously throughout the interview. Candidate voiced their thought process, explained trade-offs between approaches, and was overall easy to follow. I mean, I kind of have to give it a 4. What's 3? Candidate communicated well throughout most of the interview. My God. Candidate may have been prompted to voice their thought process and to better explain their approach at times, but overall did so clearly. No, I don't even think I needed to ask it. Like, it was documented its code all the time. It was telling me, like, why the time complexity was one way, why the space complexity was one way. It preemptively told me, but this is not the most efficient solution, but it's very clear and understandable. It's very readable. I gotta give it a 4. And then problem solving, let's see what 4 is. Candidate approached the problem in a very logical and rigorous manner. Candidate asked clarifying questions, divided the problem into logical subproblems, and navigated it effortlessly. So that's probably the one category where, like, it's hard to judge that. That's the one category where it's hard to judge. Based on the code and the way it was laid out and the way it was documented, that does seem very logical and rigorous. But on the other hand, like I said, it didn't ask clarifying questions, but that's maybe because of the way it was designed. But it's hard to like tell whether it was just copy-pasting things that it already knew somehow, but no, because we had it run the same question multiple times and it came up with different solutions with different like code implementations, different syntax, different variable names. So no, like, I have to give it a 4 here too, and it did navigate the interview effortlessly. This is insane. I don't think I've ever given 4 4s at Google when I was at Google, or maybe like once. And when I gave 4 4s at Google, it wasn't like this effortless. It was maybe because I gave that last question, min rewards, as the only question in the interview, and the candidate ended up getting to that third solution in the 45 minutes and was like very good. Maybe they got a hint or 2. Here it went through 3 questions. And it's not even been 45 minutes. I'm pretty sure that it's been like 20 minutes total. Not even. It's probably been less because I'm just talking. I'm like narrating this. So yeah, I have to give it a strong hire. I would fight to get this candidate hired. Like, if I didn't know that this was an AI, if I thought that this was someone, across another screen from me who just couldn't speak to me, they were just typing, I would fight to get this candidate hired right now. They performed exceptionally well, and they should be hired. This is insane. I'm mind blown, and yeah, I'm very curious to know if you are all mind blown like I am. Obviously, like, if I put my sort of rational hat on and I don't get drunk with cold water, I understand that, ChatGPT might be really good at this particular type of sort of situation and problem, but then it might, fail at other things. I've seen online people, prompt it things where it gets them wrong and it messes up. But still, like, this is just incredible. It's incredible, and yeah, especially since, like, Google coding interviews, I know that they're very controversial. Some people hate them, some people love them, blah, blah. Whether you like them or not, they do have a lot of merit. Like, they do test certain things, like these 4 attributes, quite well. And they're particularly good at, like, eliminating false positives. In other words, they might, you might lose very good candidates who mess up, but you'll rarely get bad candidates who pass these kinds of interviews. And so, like, ChatGPT just, like, nailed this interview. I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. I hope that you all enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below if you're as speechless as ChatGPT as I am, not as ChatGPT. Yeah. If you want to become as good as ChatGPT, you better go on Algo Expert. Go to algoexpert.io and use promo code CLEM, CLEM, for a discount on the platform. We also released Blockchain Expert recently, so check it out if you want to learn blockchain development. Machine Learning Expert, ML Expert, if you want to learn machine learning, become the developer behind ChatGPT. And don't forget to smash the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter if you enjoy short-form written content. Instagram if you like pictures, and I will see you in the next video.